just pull up one chart. Y'all can see my screen, correct?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can see it.
Okay. Okay, cool. And you see I have multiple screens, so you see a chart, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so um we'll just do a quick basic rundown of like our system and how we use it. Like Josh said, a lot of this is going to be redundant today. But if anybody's new, it's going to be important to get these fundamentals. And also, you know, even if you're not completely new, it's still good to get a reminder, right? So the main things we use, and pretty much everything is on this chart right now. I'll take off the things we don't need. The main things we use are the flow channels, which you see here. Right now, it's on a weekly, but you know, it can be, we use multi-time frames. So I don't have weekly up for any specific reason. I just have weekly up because that's what's up. We also have the MACD, right? So we're always looking at MACD. We have the flow index, and then we have fibs. So basic process is going to be, which we can see here on the 15s. We're going to be kind of ping-ponging through the Celts, and we look through setups around them. Now, one of the biggest questions people have is how to know what setups to take. So we have a couple of different setups. I'm going to switch this to purple, and I'm going to apply. So we have a couple different setups, right?
Not to interrupt you, but real quick, I think you're gonna have to make the charts bigger so we can see it full
Like
size.
that?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. So we have a couple different setups, right? We have outside shots, we have inside shots. And the biggest question that people really ask is how do you know if it's, you know, how do you know if it's safe to take an outside shot? How do you know if it's safe to take an inside shot? And this is where we look at our MACD. So we have our primary MACD, we have our secondary MACD. Primary MACD are going to be 4-hour, daily, weekly. Secondary MACD are going to be like 1 minute, 5 minute, and 15 minute. So we also look at things in terms of strength. So you'll hear us say things like the 4-hour looks strong right now, or the 4 hours losing strength, the 4-hour looks weak, whatever that may be. And when we're looking at strength, we're using both the MACD and the Celts on that specific time frame to gauge that. Okay, so if I don't have 4-hour candles here, so this MACD is not 4-hour. But if I'm looking for strength on the 4-hour time frame, I'm looking for two things. Okay, I'm looking for the MACD on the 4-hour time frame to be crossed up, and I'm looking to get above the tops. We get, so basically ATR levels, the Celt levels are ATR levels, right? So we have our upper band, we have our lower band. The inside line of the band is what we refer to as the 1.5. It's the 1.5 ATR. The second line of the band is what we call the 2.0. It's the 2.0 ATR of the band. So basically on a time frame, if you get above this 1.5, it has strength. It has bullish strength. If you get below this 1.5, it has bearish strength. If you break out completely, there's acceleration. So we get above the 1.5, we have bullish strength, we break out, and there's, you know, it's super strong. If you ever look at Sean Guido, his charts, he has like little, I really think this is clever. He has little zones marked on them, and it'll say like bull zone, bear zone, super bear zone, super bull zone. And you can kind of think about it like this, right? Like if we're looking at one time frame and we're looking at strength right here, there's not a lot of strength on the 4-hour time frame. We're just kind of hanging around the mid. Once we get here above this level, we're in bull mode. Once we get here, we're in super bull mode. So now we're going to take a look at some of our setups. The setups are outside shots, which is where we break out, we come back in and test it, and then we go. And we can see this was I can't see what time this is with my chart being full screen like this, but we see this outside shot, right? We go aggressive, we shoot up, a very aggressive candle down. This is a 15-minute candle down, so we can think of how many points were lost in one 15-minute time frame. And now there were probably a lot of people when you see a big candle like this who are thinking, oh my God, we're bearish, right? We're selling, we need to go short. Well, we know that we're still bullish on the 4-hour time frame, right? We still are above the 4-hour top, so we're in super bull mode. The 4-hour MACD was still crossed up at this point, so there's nothing telling us to go short. You can take intraday shorts against the trend, and when we look at the 15-minute Celts, we'll look at some examples of that. But until we get back in here, we're not going to be looking to short. And I'm looking at the 4-hour for a reason. I'll get into some like multi-time frame in a minute. But the reason we're looking at the 4-hour is because the 4-hour is the most important time frame for intraday strength. If you follow the simple rule of don't trade against the 4-hour and the 15-minute time frame, you're going to do just fine. Those are, easily the two most important. Your 4-hour is going to be hands down what is driving price during the day, and the 15-minute time frame is when it aligns with the 15 is going to go through cycles. It's going to go through up cycles and down cycles, even, during the day. But when your 15 and your 4-hour align, you get really good moves. When your 15 is against the 4-hour, it's not going to be a good move. So we have our moves, right? We have our outside shot here. Now, one big thing I see a lot of people take losses on when they're trying to learn our system is when does an inside shot work? When does an outside shot work? Now, does anybody have an answer for that? I like to be more engaging. So does anybody have an answer for when we're going to actually not look at the 4-hour? We're going to look at the 15-minute time frame, the 15-minute Celts. When is it safe to take a bullish outside shot on the 15s? Oh my God. This trade we had yesterday, these are the 15 Celts. Yesterday morning, we broke in, we tested, and we took the hell off. When is it safe to take this? When am I taking versus here? We look here, these outside shots failed. Okay. Now this is pre-market yesterday, or maybe maybe around like 4 or 5 in the morning, something like that. This is during the market hours. Who can tell me why this one would fail, but this one would work? Does anybody have an answer for that?
MACD.
And also the FT indicator was down.
The flow index.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about flow index right now. But that is a valid answer. But was that Frank?
Yeah, well, I said MACD.
Okay, now be more specific.
Look, I don't reference the MACD in the sense that you do with the strategy yet, but I'm just looking at the MACD and it looks like it has moved up with significant strength. It's staying above your 0 line. So that's how I would play it if I was using the MACD to also base a trade off this move.
Okay. Well, for me, God, I don't know why when I zoom in, it like goes so hard when I'm in full screen here. But the answer is yes, it's MACD and it's your primaries. Okay. So when the primaries are both, and there's, the primaries are 4-hour daily, weekly. Your weekly is going to be a little slower. Your weekly is going to matter. But a weekly time frame probably isn't going to prevent you from taking an outside shot. And so the answer is when your 4-hour and your daily are both in the direction of the outside shot, that's when you want to take the outside shot. So, to kind of show how this is working. So, when we get ready for the day, right, we're pulling up our primaries, we're pulling up our weekly Celts, we're pulling up our 4-hour Celts, wherever I have them. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting this, so I don't have all my charts exactly how I would want them for a class, so bear with me. Where the hell did my 4-hour Celts go? Okay.
How do you trade?
Here they are.
Okay.
Okay. So One second, that's what we're getting to right here, okay? So we pull up our primaries, we see if we have primary strength, okay? So, we'll just say, for instance, we were good on the 4 hour.
Maximize that again, please.
We're above the 4 hour top. We're looking good on the 4 hour, okay? Now, I'm gonna have to pull back to here. So now we're taking our trades off of the 15s. We take trades off major levels too, 4 hour levels, daily levels, but we also, those aren't always in play, right? You're not always going to get an outside shot on the 4 hours. So we're taking trades off the 15s. So when we can do this, when we can break out of the 15s like this, are when the primaries are with us. Okay. So what happened right here is our daily MACD turned up. The new day printed, the daily MACD turned up, and we took the hell off, right? We just absolutely exploded. And the reason we exploded was because, we finally had primary alignment. The 4 hour and the daily MACD both turned up. They were both pushing bullish. And we had the primary alignment to absolutely bust like this. So like if your primaries aren't aligned, we're going to be looking at stuff like this. We're going to be looking to ping pong through the 15s. The way you play the 15s is going to be contingent on what's happening on the primaries. If your primaries are both bullish, you're going to be looking to push through the tops. You're going to be looking to reject the bottoms. You're going to be looking for outside shots on the tops. You're going to be looking for inside shots on the bottoms. If our primaries are bullish, our focus is bullish, right? And that's how you use MACD with the Celts. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm using, a lot of people think MACD is used as kind of like a signal, but for me, it's knowing how to play the lower channels, because most of my trades are going to be 15 mid to 15 bottom, 15 mid to 15 top, whatever it is, right? We're taking most of our trades through the 15s. On a day like yesterday, when the primaries are lined and we have the strength to explode out, then we can start pushing from the 15s to like a 4 hour top or a 4 hour 2.0 or something along those lines. So when primaries aren't aligned, even if we break out, if my 4 hours up and my daily's down, if we break out like this, I'm probably not looking to take those outside shots, because that's when they're going to fail. They're going to fail if your primaries aren't aligned. So like right here, right? If my 4 hours up, my daily's down, I'm not looking to take this long. I'm not looking to take this long. I'm taking this short. I'm not looking to take this short. I'm not looking to take this short. I'm waiting for the inside shot to take it long. Okay. So your 15, the way we move in the 15s is going to be completely contingent on what our primaries are doing. Does that all make sense to everybody? Is there any questions about that?
Yes, Kirby, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Kirby, question out here. When you say primaries are aligned, you're talking about the primaries of the Keltner channel or KCs, right? And not the time frame.
We're talking about MACD.
No, in primaries. So when you say, right, primaries are aligned and then our non-primaries come into the picture. So when you say our primaries are aligned, it means so you say 4 hour daily and weekly, right? You're talking about the Keltner channel still, or you're talking about time frame?
I'm talking about the 4 hour and daily MACD. So
Oh,
when
that's what you're talking.
yes, so
4
when I'm
hour
saying
daily MACD.
yeah, so primaries aligned means your 4 hour and your daily MACD are both pointing in the same direction. And we'd like the weekly to be pointing in our direction. This is a little interesting because even with our weekly down, and I can go through this whole setup on why we were still able to push so hard even with the weekly down. But primary alignment means, at bare minimum, your 4 hour and your daily MACD are in the same direction. And when your 4 hour and daily MACD are in the same direction, that's when you're going to be able to push like this. If your weekly is still against you, it's going to still have a higher probability of snapping back. That did not happen yesterday and today, but we'll talk about why in just a second. Can you anticipate primary alignment? I don't know what you really mean by anticipate, but I don't, right? We have our cycle points, that little indicator with the cycle points, right? You could try, you know, but that's a little bit risky. So we have our cycle points indicators, which haven't been talked about yet. But like, if we're coming right up on the place where you think the daily MACD is going to start turning up, and you try to go long and you go against it and you're wrong, you're going to get crapped on pretty hard, right? So I wouldn't do that. And we can talk about like a setup. So, you know, here's like a setup. So like yesterday morning, this is exactly what happened to me. This was the open. Okay. Pre-market, our daily was down. At open, it curled up. Okay. Boom, it takes off. I didn't go long yet because I wasn't quite sure. I didn't see the daily was turning up until we got around here. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do? You missed the first move, you missed the opening move. And if you're new to trading, you should miss the opening move. Catching the opening move is tough. It'll shake you out. They'll rip it 5-10 points in both directions sometimes. So it's better to wait. So what do we do if we miss this opening move? Well, we draw a fib, right? Boom. And we get the fib right here at the 15 top. The golden pocket's right around that 15 1.5. So boom, we see our fib. It's the 15 1.5. My primaries are both up, which tells me there's a higher probability of getting strength on the 15s, of being able to push out of the 15s. So I take this trade. Okay, boom. You know, way the heck up here. You know, probably not going to hold all the way up there. I'm not Josh Wood. Josh can hold forever if there's a good target to get to, but you don't need to, right? Boom, you get here to the 127, maybe the 161. That's all you need. That's, you know, 10, 20 points right there, which is an incredible trade. Now execution. When am I cutting this trade? If this fails, when am I cutting it? Can anybody tell me if I get in at the 61 right here, when am I cutting this trade?
There are two answers. First answer is on fib. If it crosses below 0.5, you cut it no matter what.
Yep.
And second answer is if it crosses down the 1.5 top, you should definitely cut it.
Yep, those are the yep, and those were both in like pretty much the same spot, right? So yeah, if we break this golden pocket, we're back in the 15s. So we lost our strength. Remember when I said we get above the 1.5, we're in bull mode? Well, the second we get above this level, we're in bull mode. And a lot of people think that the Celt bands are like these support and resistance bands, and they are, but they're not walls per se. If you get above this 1.5, that you're strong. There is strength on that time frame. Okay, you're bullish on that time frame. If you get below it, you lose that bullish strength, right? So, you know, we can still take this trade here, and we're not going to necessarily have to think of this like a big wall to try to push through. However, we can see, like, I want to emphasize that if you're against the primaries, even though we're a little bit bullish on the 15s here, or I'm sorry, a little bit bearish on the 15s. So we're breaking out of the 15 bottoms. The 15s are showing some bearish strength, whatever. If my 4-hour is pointing up, I'm not going to short through this. I'm just not going to do it because it's not going to work 99% of the time. There will be exceptions where it'll, you know, something weird will happen. But 99% of the time, if your primaries are pointing up, if even one of your primaries is pointing up, and, you know, we start to get this strength, this bearish strength, it's going to snap back. Your lower time frame cycles going against your primaries are going to snap it back, you know, almost every time. So then we're looking for this trade, right? We're looking for the inside shot to take it back through. Everybody with me?
On question,
Yes, I'm
like
with you.
you said, like we need to wait for the primary to turn up, the MACD. So which means all 4-hour, 1 day, weekly, both slope and cross has to be up, or what do you say?
If it's not crossed up, it's not like super strong yet, and you kind of have to start getting a feel for it. So like when we look at this blast off point yesterday, the 4-hour was crossed up. The second the daily curled up, it took off. Okay. So if your daily is down and your 4-hour is starting to curl up, you know, obviously, first off, both primaries aren't in the same direction, right? So we're not looking for strength either way. But it's so like in this instance, this is kind of out of the ordinary where the daily was sloped up but not crossed up, and the weekly was crossed down and we still exploded. That's a little unusual. It does happen, right? That we see, but with the daily not being fully crossed up yet, and the weekly still being down, this is not quite as common, but it just kind of depends on the whole situation. And that's where, like, you know, Josh keeps talking about like looking at the whole come on here, looking at the whole picture, right? Like, where are we at on the big picture? What are our big picture targets? Where are we heading? And, you know, we can see here, like, you know, we've me and Josh, and I don't know who else have been talking for a few days now. Like, well, it looks like we're heading to the weekly tops. It looks like we're heading to the daily mids. It looks like we're heading to the 4-hour tops, wherever we're heading. So your big picture kind of has to be in alignment. And when it's in alignment like that, that's when you can kind of get a feeling of, is this slope up gonna send it, or do we need to wait for the full cross up? Like we can see here, we were holding, you know, we held this little golden pocket here that we were holding, and we had some fib targets to try to shoot for. So, you know, things were trying to push up to the bigger time frame targets. Josh says the moment it needs a breather, so we're gonna go back. I'm sorry I have to keep switching this. Like I said, I wasn't prepared for this. Otherwise, I would have a chart that looks a lot cleaner to set all this up. So the 1 minute needs a breather. So primaries are up, right? 4 hours up, daily's up, 15 is up, 30 is up, 1 hour is up, everything is pointing up. Well, you're still going to go through these little 1 minute and 5 minute down cycles. So like, you know, when Josh is like the 1 minute needs a breather, it's these little retraces you're seeing. Okay, so we retrace a little bit, then we shoot back up. We retrace a little bit, we shoot back up. So like you're going to go through multiple you know, so the biggest cycle we look at is monthly, and I can kind of illustrate this. So, you know, I just have to switch this to the right data. So we look at our monthly kelps. Sorry, this one's set to like monthly kelts 3 years. So it'll take a second here. Okay, so we look at our monthly kelts, and it takes a long time to go through these cycles, right? From going from monthly top to monthly bottom and back up to monthly top takes a year sometimes, you know what I mean? This takes a long time. And we can see in here, there's a couple weekly cycles built in here, right? Like this was a weekly cycle. So during one monthly cycle, we went through, you know, 1, 2 weekly cycles. During each weekly cycle, we're going through a couple daily cycles where we're going daily bottom to daily top, daily MACD, crossing up, crossing down. During each daily cycle, you're going to go through a bunch of 4-hour cycles, right? So we have our big time frame cycles, and then the little time frame cycle between it. That's why it's not just, you know, it's never just a straight shot. There's these retraces, and these retraces are you know, the lower time frame cycles, right? So our daily cycles are 4-hour cycles. So when we're in like super blast mode and we're shooting out, we're still going to go through some 5-minute down cycles. We're still going to go through some 1 minute down cycles. So you know, they need a breather. They need to cool off. A 1 minute cycle is going to happen often, right? And we can see these 1 minute down cycles happened often, even when we're in like, you know, go to the moon mode. It's not just straight up, right? Even when it is straight up, we get 1 minute down cycles all the time. So that's what Josh means by that. And you can use those to your advantage. Like I mentioned earlier, like, taking this entry here, right? We draw our fib. We miss the first move, which is what we want to do anyways, because we don't want to be trading the open unless you're very, very, very confident and a very, very good risk management. We draw our fib. As soon as we see the trend turn, we draw our fib. This is our breather. This is our 1 minute breather, and it gives us our entry. Boom. Then we get another, breather here. And then we can keep, getting in on our breathers. Does that all make sense to everybody? So we're looking at, two main things to gauge where price is going to go. We're looking at our MACD cycles and we're looking at our flow channel cycles. We're going to be pulling up our bigger time frames. We're going to be pulling up our 4-hour Celts. We're going to be, oh, God damn it. I did not just close that. We're going to be pulling up our 4-hour Celts. We're going to be pulling up our daily Celts, right? We're going to be looking at where the major levels are. Where are we going? Where are we going? And then we're going to be looking at our MACD and saying, where is our strength? If our primaries are up like they are right now, and, we can show this on the weekly. And some of the stuff hit weekly tops today. So even though we had this big move up yesterday, like, none of us were thinking about going short during any of these because we haven't, for a couple of reasons. You can call this hitting the weekly top. We're pretty damn close. But like during this here, right? We had this short overnight. We technically were opening lower. A lot of the MACD were pointing down in the morning. We're not looking to short yet for two reasons. One, we haven't hit our target yet, which is the weekly top. And two, our primaries are still up, right? So we're looking for our major time frame target, which is the weekly top. Then we're looking at our primaries and, going from there. So even if we hit the weekly top like this, two things is going to happen. Let's say our weekly won't start turning up until like up here. It's really high. We pretty much have to get out of the weeklies for the weekly to turn up. So we have two options here. One is obviously we reject and we go back down to the weekly mid on the big time frame. Two, we push and we get strength, and that happens all the time. It hasn't happened for a while. Ever since the post-COVID melt, we've been doing full weekly cycles, but you can see that it happens all the time. It doesn't happen on the bearish side very much, but it happens on the bullish side. In fact, I can't recall the last time I've ever seen us being below the weekly bottoms like we are above it here. So this is, super melt up mode. We're in super bull mode for the market. So the two options here are going to be we hit the weekly top and we go back down through a weekly cycle, or we bust through. Now, a couple things we can look at. One is, what is the 15-minute flow index doing as we're hitting the weekly top? Are they buying or are they starting to unload their positions? And right now it looks like they're starting to unload their positions, right?
Mhm.
We hit we hit a high on the flow index as we ran into the weekly top, as we were pushing up, and then it looks like they're starting to sell. It's not completely confirmed yet, but it looks like they're starting to sell. Also, what's going to be my biggest determining factor on if we break through this weekly top? Somebody should be able to answer this.
What's the question?
What's going to tell me if we're likely to break through this weekly top and keep pushing, or if we're going to be more likely to reject it? What's the one thing I want to be looking at?
The primaries, MACD.
Yep, the weekly MACD, and to be specific in this case, right? Because this is the weekly Celts. If my weekly MACD is crossed down, what does that tell me? The weekly does not have strength, right? And there's two things that tell us the strength of a time frame. The MACD tells us the strength of a time frame, and the Celts tell us the strength of a time frame. If we get above this 1.5, the weekly has strength. Well, the weekly's crossed down, so the weekly's not strong. So is it likely to show that strength on the Celts? No. It's not as likely, right? It's just not as likely. We could still bust through, but since the weekly MACD is down, your MACD is essentially telling you if there's strength or not, and then the Celts show you that strength. So with the weekly cross down, it doesn't have bullish strength. We're not going to be as likely to get above here. We're way more likely to go back down now. But our primaries are up. My daily and my 4 hour are up. So that's why, like, you know, Josh said today was a rough day. I took one very small trade today, and it's because of this. We're running into the weekly top as resistance. I'm not going to go long through it because the weekly is down. So I don't trust going long through this level. I don't trust going short either, right? Because the primaries are up. My 4 hour and my dailies are up. No, not necessarily. And so the question was, so just because we break back into a Celt, it doesn't mean we always go back to the bottom. No. And it's going to depend on your time frame you're looking at for how quick it's going to happen, right? On a weekly, it's going to take a long goddamn time. On a 4 hour, it's going to take a long time. You can reject the 4 hour mid. On a 15, we're going to hit the bottoms multiple times a day. Because look at their ATR, they're dynamic. So even through this big push, you know, we can see that here, right? We're super bullish. And that's another thing that you can use your primaries for. If we are breaking out of the 15 Celts like this and our primaries are up, we're going to be more likely to hold the tops. We're going to be more likely to hold the mids. We're going to be less likely to break out. And it looks like we did overnight. You know, we broke out for a little bit and then, you know, broke back in, whatever. But this isn't going to be a sustained move. And even though you technically could have taken this outside shot here, I'm not doing it because 99% of the time it's going to fail, right? Because my primaries are up still. So I'm not looking for these shorts. I'm waiting patiently for this because I know at this point I can be confident we're going to go back up to the 15 tops because my primaries are up and we're going to start showing that strength on the 15-minute Celts. I can't be as confident we're going to push to the bottoms, right? So just like today again, primaries are up. We're not necessarily pushing to the 15 bottoms, but we're hitting major resistance right here. We're essentially running into the weekly tops here. So we're kind of trapped. So, you know, what do you do on days when we're trapped like this? Does anybody have an answer of how to trade on a day like today when you're trapped?
Sell high, I mean, on the top, that's a resistance. Maybe when it reaches there, you start looking for the sell.
We're going to go to the 5-minute Celts. And we're going to take very short trades through the 5s. That's going to be what you're going to want to do on you know, when people say there's choppy days, you're going to want to use your 5s because we're still going to go 5 top to 5 bottom all the time. We're going to remember how I said we're going to go through multiple 4-hour cycles through a daily cycle, multiple 15-minute cycles through a 4-hour cycle, or we're going to go through 5-minute cycles all the goddamn time during the day. It's going to happen all the time. So we can, you know, play these short trades, keeping it very tight, scalping through the 5s. Today, days like today, you have to scalp and you have to know when you have to scalp, when you have to keep it tight, when you don't have to keep it tight, and when you can push. Days like today where we hit a major resistance level and we hit the weekly top, the weekly MACD is down. That top is probably going to hold, okay? But the 4-hour and daily are up, so we're not going to just dump. So what do? We scalp in the 5s, right? We take these little 5-minute top to 5-minute mid trades. Maybe you try going 5 mid to 5 top and you're scalping what you can in here, or you don't trade, Days like yesterday, we could get strong, right? Days like yesterday, we could get strong because we had our primaries alignment and we had major targets on the bigger time frames, I'll just use one chart and switch my kilts, I guess, because this is so ridiculous. So we had major targets to hit on bigger time frames, right? So when we look at like our 4-hour kilts, it's not gonna let me pull the 4-hour up because I don't have enough data. Oh God, that is so frustrating. Okay, but either way, we had a 4-hour top target. Okay, we had a daily mid target that were right around here. Once we get above that daily mid and that 4-hour top, the next major target we have is the weekly top. The next major thing we have is the weekly top. Okay. So we know we can push to the weekly top. We can hold our longs and we can push long all day because our primary's turned up and we're heading to the weekly top. We have that weekly top magnet. We hit the magnet. So then we have to keep it tight. And that's another place where like a lot of people really struggle with is trying to understand when you are able to push and when you're not able to push, right? Everybody wants big trades. Everybody wants to make a lot of money. But days like today, where we hit some of these major time frame targets, we can't push up any further. Our weekly MACD is down. We hit the target. We're not going to break through, so we have to keep it really tight and scalp. Yesterday, as soon as we broke, I think it was like right here, yeah, right around here, where we broke that 4-hour top and that daily mid. There's nothing to stop this until we hit the weekly top. There's nothing to stop this. So you can hold this all day long. I talk about it sometimes. If our prime, this is like a really sick setup that can just make you a lot of money, but you have to do it right. If we break out of the 15 tops like this and they're sloped up like this and your primaries are in the same direction and you have a major time frame target. So think about like all I just said that has to be lined up for this to work, right? Your primaries need to be with you and you need to have a major time frame target. You can stay in this until we get back in the 15s because we're strong. The 15s are strong, right? If we're above the 15 top, what did I say that means? It means the 15-minute time frame is strong bullish. So we're not gonna turn down until we get back in this level. So you can literally hold this all day long until we get back in this level, which would have been, you know, way the hell up here somewhere, which is an absurd. You can just kick your feet back and wait until we start losing strength on the 15s and then sell, which is really hard to do. Like I understand emotionally, like you're gonna sell, right? Like there's very few people who have the emotional awareness and fortitude to stay in this type of trade. I don't pay attention to VWAP personally. I don't think Josh does either, to be honest with you. VWAP's a cool tool. I'm not saying there's anything like wrong with it, but you know, we just don't use it very often. Sean uses it a little bit, but I really don't. But that's just like an example, right? Like that's just something I think I've noticed over time is when our primaries are with you and the 15s are sloped up like this and you have that big target, you can stay in it all day. I know that's not realistic. So like I said, what do we do that's realistic? We wait, we let the opening move play out because it's too risky. We draw our fib, then we see if it's going to hold. My daily turned up, so I know that this, you know, this outside shot's probably more likely to hold, and we push to our fib targets, right? And then maybe once we get above, like I said, we had a daily mid and a 4-hour top here. Once we get above those, then you can start, you know, maybe let a runner try to push out to some really aggressive targets. Today, we can't hold long. Does everybody understand like what I mean by that? And that's one thing that like a lot of traders really struggle with is they'll be like, well, my primaries are up and yesterday we blew the hell out, and they'll try to take these outside shots here and we tapped out. We tapped out, right? We hit that weekly top, and even though we were technically a point away, we tapped out. And this was the market saying target hit. This was the algos saying, boom, we hit our target. But since my primaries are up, we're not going to bust out of the 15 bottoms. It's just not going to happen. So we're stuck. We're stuck in this little piddly range where you have to use the 5-minute celts to just kind of scalp between, draw your little fibs every once in a while, and, just kind of go for the best. And we can see that kind of worked out. Like we had our first little fib here that we were looking at. We were looking at a bearish fib here, which, we were hoping would hold. Well, it didn't, right? But if we look at it from the flip side, we ended up having a little bullish fib here. Or no, it was, sorry. We had our, what is going on here? We had this little bullish fib here. So, we bounce. We're probably going to retrace because like I said, our primaries are up. So we're not going to push out of the 15 bottoms. So we can take these small little trades, right? We get in at the golden pocket here. We go to the 15 top and, we take it off because we hit our target. Does everybody get what did everybody follow that whole thing? There's got to be questions. There's 23 people in here. Yes, Jake. But it doesn't have to be the weekly top. That's what it was in this case. It can be a daily top or a 4-hour top or a daily mid or whatever, right? We're looking at whatever the biggest time frame, as long as it's a primary, yeah. Yep. And that's what we're going to be looking for on days like, yesterday. And then today we hit that primary target and we're not going to. So drawing fibs, basically like the way we do it, we kind of cheat, like Josh calls it renegade fibs because he does it a little different. So this is on Flowtrade, but you can do it the same either way. So on Flowtrade, you're going to click on this little symbol here and we go to Fibonacci retracement. Now, some people use extensions. We use retracement. Okay. And basically, every time the trend changes, we're fibbing it out. So like, we go from, if it's a bearish fib, so we had this move here, right? We were way up here. This was our bottom. We see the trend turn. So on a bearish fib, you grab the retracement tool, you click once at the low, you click once at the high. And then you get your retracement levels, which are your potential entries, and then you get your targets. And, this should make a lot of sense to everybody now. The bearish fib failed. Somebody tell me why the bearish fib failed, but the next bullish fib went to its 127 target. I know somebody can tell me why the bullish one succeeded, but the bearish one failed.
It had the golden pocket.
The primaries were up. Yep, exactly, CJ. Yep, exactly, because the primaries were up. Now, like I said, it gets risky today because we hit that major target and the market can do this at any moment when you hit those major targets, right? So trade with your primaries and keep it very, very tight. Which is why days like today are really, really hard for a lot of traders because I literally didn't do anything because I just wasn't confident. We hit our level, we had the one nice move and then it was like, well, until we break through the weekly tops or the primaries start to turn down, we're going to have to play this little 5-minute range and just, scalp away. And that's really all you can do. But, the point I'm trying to make is you have to know when you can scalp or when you have to scalp and when you're able to do. That's why this is such like a beautiful example of everything right here. Because yesterday, we look at 2 days ago, our 4-hour up was up, but our daily was down. Somebody tell me what happens when the 4 hours up and the daily's down. What happens in the 15 Celts? How does price behave in the 15s when the primaries are not aligned, when they're in opposite directions?
Every move has a target rate.
What was that?
Every move has a counter start retrace.
Yep, we're gonna ping pong. We're gonna ping pong. So when
Chop,
our
essentially, no?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Like chop, essentially chop.
I don't like that word because it's not, to me, like chop is this. When we're not even, if we're stuck and we're not even going through the 5s or the 15s, and we're literally, God, I hate having to drag this all the way, but we're this to me is chop. Okay.
So basically, I mean, to answer your question, you're going to see movement in your direction, but it's also going to be countered by violent swings to the opposite side where the larger time frames are favoring.
Well, your direction. So when you said your direction, in this case, the 4 hour and the daily were in opposite directions.
Right. 4 hour
So-
in the daily are in opposite direction. So if I'm going long and they're you know, they're in the
yes,
opposite
yes,
direction,
yes,
then
yes.
I'm going to see there's going to be more chances for what I like to call rug pulls when we're just
Yes.
kind of chiming along and I think we're going good, and then there's going to be a violent
Yes.
unexpected swing to the opposite side, which could very easily either stop me out or put me way upside down on my position.
Exactly. Yes. So when those days when the primaries aren't aligned, we're going to stay inside the 15s, right? We're going to stay inside. I think this is the easiest trading in the world. 15 top, 15 bottom, 15 top, 15 bottom, 15 top, 5 top, 5. It's really the easiest trading in the world to me. A lot of people, Josh hates it because, you know, Josh wants to make $1 million a day and do this all the time, but he can do that, right? Yeah, that's what's going to happen. When our primaries aren't aligned, we're going to do this. So our daily was down, our 4 hours up, and we're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck. Daily turns up, blast off. We had our first primary target right here. We hit it and took off. Primaries are up, or daily and 4 hours up, weekly still down, but that's okay. Daily and 4 hours up, and we have nothing to get in the way. We have, you know, 4 hour top here, daily mid here, and weekly top way the hell up here. So we just take off. Boom, you know, massive day. Then we hit the weekly top. Boom. Now what? Well, our primaries are up, okay? But we hit that major target. We hit the weekly top. But since the weekly MACD is down, we're not going to break through. So then you're kind of stuck. You know, we couldn't even get 15-minute cycles today. Our 15-minute down cycles were getting snapped up and the up cycles were getting snapped down. And we were pretty much stuck scalping in the 5s. So you have to know when it's, you know, right to do this and when it's right to push. And it's not always right to push. This is going to be the majority of your trading days. We're stuck like this, and you know, you might get some, you know, strength, but that strength isn't going to sustain as often or as long when our primaries are down. So like when my primaries aren't aligned and this happens, I personally am not going long. Some people will, and there's other things to consider, right? Like if we just had a 4 hour inside shot and we had the 4 hour mid up here, the 4 hours turned up, you know, maybe you get a little aggressive, but you're ready to cut, right? You understand that that rug pull you were just talking about can't happen. Me personally, I'm waiting for this right here. When our primaries aren't aligned and I see us busting out, I'm waiting. And then as soon as this, in fact, this was the trade I took right here. Boom. In here, out here. Beautiful, right? Fib to fib, top to mid. Perfect, right? Then we do a couple more 15-minute cycles. Then, you know, the next day, I'm sorry, this is so, if I would have known, I would have prepared better. But, you know, the next day, the daily turns up. You know, technically, this was my target right around here. So I'm out here, I'm in here, I'm out here, which actually was the 127. I honestly thought yesterday, like I'm surprised. I thought we would initially retrace a bit, but we didn't, right? We blew through. Once you blow through resistance, it then becomes support. And it was, I think it was 40. I think this was it right here, right where the 127 was. Because I remember being like, damn, that's so perfect. But we blew right through, right? Boom. Hit the weekly target, and then we're stuck not able to take, we're stuck not able to take those big trades anymore. Technically, it was this morning that we got stuck, right? Because this was the weekly top hit right here. So you could get aggressive this morning and push. That's totally fine because we didn't hit the weekly top yet. But boom. Is that clear to everybody? And it's just a great example. So and this is the hard part, right? Like that's a lot to put together, right? And it takes a while to like fully understand this. So don't feel bad if it seems like a lot of information, because it is, but it eventually, like Josh uses the analogy of like a pilot, right? Like when you're a pilot, and if you're not a pilot and you walk into a cockpit, there's all these dials and all this stuff all over the place, right? And it looks insane. Like, what the hell? How do you control all this? But the pilot walks in and it's just second nature, right? He's boom, 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 boom. And you'll get to that point where it's just second nature, where you're like, okay, where are my primaries at? Do I have any major targets? Okay, so today I'm going to be stuck in the 15s. Or, okay, today we're full send. We can put, as soon as we get out of this 15 top, I'm going long and I'm pushing hard. When it blows through your target but doesn't retrace, do you need to draw fibs even though the direction didn't change? That's hard, right? That's hard. So like,
I have the similar question. Once you, let's say, your 1.27 target was met and it still keep going, do you just wait for a retrace, or you try to make out of something out of it?
I
On the
like
same.
to wait for retraces. And that's hard, right? We didn't really get one. You know, personally, like after this initial, I was in school after the initial pop. I remember checking it a little bit, but it's hard, right? Like ideally you wait for a retrace. There was one, and this is where, you know, using the fives come in. You know, ideally we wait for a retrace, but all we really got was this here. You know, we hit the 5-minute top. We had the outside shot. It came back. It hit that 5-minute 1.5, but the 5-minute was not. The 5 stayed strong all day, right? The 5 stayed strong all day. We never broke back in the 5s. So even though we went through a 5-minute MACD down cycle, it was still too strong in order to push out. But that's hard, right? And that's something where you really have to like take risk management into account, because if you get in up here, your trade isn't violated until we're back in here, right? It's not. So you have to, you know, understand that the reward is great, but the risk is great. But yeah, you can also, that's a really good point on using fibs for it too, right? Like that's how you play these trades. So let's fib out this move. Okay, well, that's way the hell down here. Well, let's fib out the second move and voila, look, right? Yeah. So, you know, we missed, and you can fib out multiple moves. It's kind of like it seems a little weird. So like when, you know, we're drawing fibs, you can draw multiple fibs, right? So we drew the first fib, we hit the targets. So that fib goes away. So now what do we do for the second fib? So, you know, here was our first fib target. We hit the 127 here, the 161 here, then boom. I'm probably looking for 2 possible entries. I'm drawing the first very long-term fib, which puts the golden pocket at the 15 top. This is the ideal situation for me, but we can draw another fib and say, you know, okay, there's this fib here from this move here, and we ended up pulling to the 618, but to no Celts. And that's a risk management issue. If you want to be safe, you know, you wait for the bigger term fib and you wait for that better retrace. But also the one thing that I'm actually not showing here that does make the second fib a little bit more validated is we did have this, which was like right here, which was the daily mid and the 4-hour top. So, you know, you find a level, you want to find a level to take it off. I'm not just going to go long in no man's land for no reason. So yeah, I'm redrawing my fib. I see the golden pocket lines up with the daily mid and the 4-hour top. Then boom, you can push, right? Because we did have a good support level here at that point. We had that 2 primary levels, 4-hour primary level and a daily primary level that we couldn't turn go off. But that's where you kind of got, you know, and that takes a little time to get a feel for and understand, like, when is this worth trying here, right? Is it worth the risk? And in You know, obviously, yes, it was, but you have to understand, like with the daily mid and the 4 hour here, you know, the second those level cracks, it's tough because we haven't lost our strength yet, and we're still strong until we get down here. So your drawdowns can be big, but we know there's nothing major to, we also know there's nothing major to stop it till the weekly top, and we are in full send mode. So if you're new, wait for those retraces. If you know and are confident when there's a gap, then there's a gap in the range, and you know there's nothing to stop it, then get a little aggressive. Does that make sense? But yeah, I'm redrawing my fibs because this is still a change in direction, right? This is still a change in direction. It's not a massive counter move. It's that 1 minute breather, but it's, and we can see, right? It was a fib entry. This was a fib entry from the move from the outside shot. It was a fib entry. So yeah, it's tough, right? These are a tough couple days. I guarantee multiple people in this room were trying to call tops through this whole thing. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And that's not me being, I used to do that shit all the time. And it's really hard not to, you know, because when I first started, I would be like, oh my God, price has to come down. It has to come down. We have to come through the 15s. We have to come back through the 15s. It has to happen. And I would try to call tops or catch knives or whatever. But you have to know when you can do that. And you can't do it when your primaries are up because there's no reason to. So you know, you want to be looking to go with that strength, but you know, you have to know that there's that range to take you, and that takes time. It takes time. If the primaries are up 5 and 15 are down, somebody have an answer for that? If the primaries are up and your 5 and your 15 are down, what do you do?
Don't go long. Short the top at the 5s.
Did you
Primaries are up, then we need to play in the 15-minute cult.
Okay, so if the primaries are up and the 5 and the 15 are down, what do we wait for?
Reversal.
Waiting for their MACDs to turn back up.
Yes, exactly. If the primaries are up, I'm going long all day. You will see people counter trend trading, but that's risky, and you have to you have good risk management, know what you're doing. Yeah, I'm waiting because when our primaries are up and you know our 5 and 15 are down, these are what your down cycles will look like. These are what your up cycles will look like, right? So you wait, you stock your entry. You stock your entry at that point and you say, okay, you know, we didn't get a 15 to turn down, so it's kind of hard to show here. But if my primaries are up and my 15s are down, I'm saying, okay, where is my entry going to be to take this back up? I'm drawing my fibs. I'm looking at my Celts, and I'm waiting for that 5 and 15 to turn back with the primaries. As soon as those turn back with the primaries, it's go time. It's hammer it time, right? And you'll get a nice long move. I'm not going short against the primaries. People will, and you might even see me do it once in a while, but you know, I'm going to tell you I don't, you know, because you shouldn't. But yeah,
hey, Kirby.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt you. So you're talking about the 1 minute, 5 minute, 15-minute, and then the primary. So 6 MACDs. How, if we're limited on space, right? How do we keep track of 6 different MACDs?
What platform are you on?
It's Quant Tower.
Perfect.
Thanks for doing this, by the way. Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah. This is how you keep track of it. Can everybody see that? Does it show it? Hold on. I don't know
No.
why it's like pointing me way off screen. Okay, so I know it's like harder, but do you see this here where I'm circling my mouse?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our cycle point indicator. Okay, So this tells you what your MACD are doing. This is how I have mine set. You don't need to be looking at 30-minute and 2-hour. I personally look at 2 secondaries, 2 primaries, and two tweeners, 2 middle time frames, but don't. You should really keep it 1 minute for 2 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, 4-hour daily and weekly if you're new. And that's why, like Josh is saying with these classes, like you might see me do something, you might see Josh do something that isn't part of the like core foundations. You should stick to the core foundations for now, but the cycle point indicator tells you your MACD. So there's slope and cross. I wish there was a better example of one that's sloped down and crossed up, but if the slope is green, it means it's sloped up. If the cross is green, it means it's crossed up. If your slope is red, it means it's sloped down. If your cross is red, it means it's crossed down. So you can have something that's sloped up and crossed down, or sloped down and crossed up.
How do you use this? I mean, for me, initially before today, I mean, it was just numbers, so I turned it off. But how you're using the slope and cross up instead of looking to MACDs?
Oh, look right here. The 5 just crossed down, but it's still slope up. You see, what was your question? How do I use
How
it?
do I use this information instead of looking at MACDs and the
Well,
MACD?
I mean, it tells you, right? So if they're green, it tells you they're crossed up and they're pointing up. If they're red, it tells you it's crossed down and pointing down.
Okay.
So we can see my primaries are up,
Mhm.
my 5 is up, and you know, everything else is down right now.
Mhm.
So
Got it.
Like related question. So you say weekly is up means, so from your definition, slope and cross for weekly has to be green to say it is up, or you just say when slope is green, you say weekly is up? What is the definition of weekly is up for cycle point?
definition's tough because you might hear people say like the 4-hour is turning up, which
Mhm.
would mean that it's probably starting to slope up. So like that's
What is
really
this?
tough. That's really tough because like if it starts to slope up, you're gonna and that's where like a lot of the little like nuance comes in where like you'll start to see like you'll have a trade set up and you'll see that 5-minute slope up and you'll be like it's go time. Other times that 5-minute slope up won't mean as much, and it's dependent on so many variables and what everything else is doing. But for the basics, if it's crossed, it's strong. If it's sloped, it's not very strong yet, and it's starting to gain its strength. So if it's sloped up but not crossed up, it's starting to gain its strength, but not really. And you'll see this in the Celts. Like, start paying attention to this. Watch when you're watching, look at what happens to the Celts as we do, or how the MACD behaves as we move through the Celts. You'll see it. We'll be crossed up. You'll see it start to slope down as we hit here, cross down as we hit the mid, and you'll start to notice like the correlation between MACD slope and cross and where we are on the Celts. But you kind of have to observe it a little bit. So it's really tough to give like a definitive answer to that because it depends. It depends, right? It depends.
No problem. Agreed. So the next question is, you said like if you go with the primary, like 4-hour is up and the daily is down, we can take an entry between a 15-minute top and bottom. So when you say that 4-hour up and daily down, we can take an entry in 15-minute top between top and bottom, or mid to top or mid to bottom. At that time, what would be the slope and cross of 4-hour and daily?
What would be the slope and cross of the 4-hour and daily?
Yes.
They'll be mismatched. It doesn't, as long as they're mismatched, right? So if it's red here, green here, green here, red here, green, it doesn't matter as long as they're not matching.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And in that instance, what you want to do is follow your 15 and your 5-minute MACD. So when the primaries aren't aligned, first of all, like Josh says all the time, if you've been in the classes, like his number one rule is not to trade against the 15, right? So in those cases where the primaries aren't aligned, when you want to trade, what direction's my 15 pointing? Okay, then you look to trade in that direction. So my 15's down, I'm looking to trade down. Then you use the 5-minute and the 1-minute to kind of guide you to if your entry's right. And kind of go from there. So if my 15's down, but my 5-minute and 1-minute are up, I'm not gonna, and my primaries aren't aligned, I'm not gonna just go short at the 15 mid just because we hit it. I'm gonna wait because the 5's still up, and I'm gonna see if it holds, right? If it holds and my 1-minute starts to turn down, then I'll go short. If my 1-minute, my 5-minute still stay up, then I'm gonna wait. Maybe we hit the 15 top and I can take it short there. And you kind of have to observe it for a while. Do they slope in succession or just when they want? I don't know what you mean. Do they slope when they want? Or in succession? Like Mike talks about like the lower time frames pushing on the upper time frames, and like he calls it like convergence, right? Where the upper time, your 5-minute will turn and it'll push on the 15, and then the 15 will turn and it'll push on the 30, and then the 30 will turn. That, like, we can see that right now. Did you guys see that on the 5 minutes up, the 15's down, the 5 is pushing on the 15 and it's trying, we're after hours, so it sucks no matter what. But the 5 minutes trying to push the 15-minute up right now, and that'll eventually keep pushing on the others. But do they do it when they want to? It's all math, right? So like you can see when it's gonna happen. But you'll start to notice that, and a lot of like these like more nuanced questions you guys are asking take some time in the seat and observation. But if you're running into a trade and you're like, what if wondering these things like live real time, ask, right? And we can dissect it in the moment. It's always easy in hindsight, right?
Yeah, so what I understood from him, Mike, is that if secondaries are aligned, 1 minute, 2 minutes, they will try to change 5 minutes direction. And if 5 and 15 is up, then and 30 is down, it may start pushing 30 to change its direction and start curling back up on MACD. And then every secondary is aligned, then it can change 1 hour or 4 hour MACD as well. The direction.
Yep, exactly. It's going to start with your lower time frames. Like it has to, right? It has to. So like we're not going to hit the weekly top and then suddenly the 4 hour and the daily are just going to turn down, right? It's based on math and moving averages. So like we can see my 4 hour isn't going to turn down until, around here. And then my daily won't turn down until around here. So like the lower time frames will start to get that bearish strength, and then it'll start pushing on some bigger time frames and they'll start getting that bearish strength. And then eventually they'll push hard enough and, we'll be able to, it'll push the big ones down. Which is more accurate when the Celts and Omegas don't line up? Well, the Omegas are dynamic, so like technically it's like probably a little more accurate, but also the Celts are like basing it off of that candle. So like it depends on how the algos are programming it, because like when you're looking at the Omegas and it's, if it's a 4 hour Celt, it's reprinting that level every 4 hours. If you're looking at an Omega, it'll kind of just use every 4 hour, it'll use the last 4 hours from wherever you're at. So like in terms of what's the current ATR, it's the Omegas is more accurate, but the non-Omegas are going to be what the actual candles are going to print and what's going to be showing on 99% of trader screens, and probably the algos as well. Probably what the algos are going to, but I don't know. That would be something good to ask Josh if he has any data on if the algos are using real-time ATR like the Omegas, or if they're, using the candle print. I honestly don't have a 100% answer for that. But like if you're talking about like where is ATR right now, Omegas, which is more accurate in sense of like which level is going to be more accurate for what the programs are firing off, I'm not sure.
I think he said, at least when you're reaching big, massive moves in either direction, that in his testing, I think he's noticed, is it the 3.0 or the 3.5 ATR that you use in the system?
Can you repeat that?
As far as movements in huge range in either direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ATR on one of the indicators used is it a 3.0 or a 3.5 ATR?
3.5.
So I think that's the one that he mentioned, saying that that's usually where you can start to look for
Terminate.
algos
Right.
and or institutions to use for the big extent of that move if you get there, if that makes sense.
Right. Like my 15s, this is my personal 15 Celt, and don't do it like this, but I'm just showing it to show the example. I use personally a 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, and 3.5, because, and this is where like understanding everything we put together comes into play and like my specific style. But you can see like I use the regular flow channels for the regular Celts, and then my extra ATR levels are on the Omegas. So yeah, but the mid always lines up, right? Like the mid is always lined up. So I don't think the Omegas should be that much different, because my mid is always at the same spot. Okay, I have about 10 more minutes. So does anybody have any specific questions, topics they want to go over? And I hope everything was clear. I really do. I know I'm not Josh, right? I know Josh is the GOAT, but I really hope it helped.
You did a really good job, man. You did a really good job.
Thank you.
So Kirby, Hank here, right? Just one more question, and I'm just going to repeat the same question again because I'm trying to fit it in my head.
Mhm.
When you say the primaries, you are referring to the MACDs,
Mhm.
and the MACDs. When you say primaries, again, you're talking about 4-hour, daily, weekly, and possibly monthly also. Yeah, and
Yeah.
correct. And it's purely MACDs. And the lower ones that you're talking about is 1 minute, 5 minute, and 15 minute. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Those are secondaries. And a lot of times, like for the lingo, like, so the primaries we're referring to MACD, but for the like 4-hour daily and weekly Celts, we'll probably say the uppers, right? And so you might hear us say like, hey, we're breaking back in the lowers. I'm sure you've heard that in chat or seen it in the trade room, right? Like, hey, we're breaking back in the lowers now. The lowers would be the secondary time frame Celts. So like your 5-minute, your 15-minute Celts. And then the uppers would be your primary
4-hour.
time, 4-hour daily weekly Celts. Yep. But
So
yeah,
the up.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Nothing important.
No, I was just restating it again that 4 hours, the uppers would be the 4-hour daily and weekly, monthly. I was just kind of restating it so that it fits in my head. I don't know about others basically.
But yeah, so like going forward, I'm sorry, I know I don't know if you guys like looking at ES, but it's like all I trade. But going forward, we hit that weekly top. Our weeklies turn down, so we're not as likely to bust through. So plans are going to be very cautious until one of two things happens. Either we get above this weekly 1.5, then we can start, looking for bigger longs again. The other thing we have coming up is the daily top, which is like right around here. So if we get above this weekly 1.5, Then our next destination will be the daily top. And then, you know, we reevaluate from there. If we keep rejecting this level, you know, we're looking at the flow index, lower high, lower low on the 15, right? That doesn't look very good. That looks like we could be tapping out here. And we saw that aggressive candle today when we hit the weekly top, right? We had that aggressive candle down, which means the algos got their target and, you know, decided no more highs. But we're going to be very cautious on our shorts until we start to see that 4-hour turn down, and that'll tell, and get back in the 4-hour Celts, right? Those are going to be the two big signals that, okay, we're ready for a move down. We need to get back inside the 4-hour flow channels, and we need the 4-hour MACD to turn down. And I'll bet you anything that the 4-hour MACD will turn down right at that 4-hour 1.5. And that'll be pretty much, you know, the cycle point or the cross point, depending on the math. But that'll be our signal that, okay, we can start looking for real shorts. Big pick fibs and how to trade between time frames. So, you know, we're just using them like we use like the big Celt, right? So like we're drawing our big pick fib, you know, whatever it is, right? Or let's do, is there something bigger I can draw? I don't think so. Let's go back bearish, because the bearish ones were just a little easier to explain.
Herbie,
So, like,
can you do NQ, man?
yeah, sure. But while it's loading, so we're just using them for like our major targets and to give us that sense of direction, just like the major time frame Celts do. And, you know, like Josh is very good at this, canceling out the noise intraday and, you know, pushing to these targets, but you still want to keep your primaries in mind. So like, let's say we have, this will take forever to load, I'm sorry, but let's say we have like a major time frame fib, right? And it's far away, probably not going to hit it in a day or two. It's pretty far, but we know that's our destination, so we're keeping that in mind while we're looking at our primaries, right? If we know we're going to be going up, but my primaries are misaligned, but I have that big time frame fib, we held the golden pocket, we're going up there, I'm probably going to be more bullish biased, right? Even if my primaries aren't aligned, I might be looking for more bullish through the 15 trades instead of bearish through the 15 trades. If my primaries align, then I can really get aggressive and, you know, push hard, like you know, yet like we saw yesterday. I can say, okay, we have that big picture fib target, but you also want to be looking at your Celts too, right? You got to make sure there's nothing major that can get in the way. I don't know why this isn't loading. Okay, there we go. So NQ didn't hit the weekly top yet, huh? Interesting. Okay. So let's say we're going to do this bearish because I can just see the fib here. I can see it in my mind. Okay. So, you know, we came down, we hit our little golden pocket, we get back in the weekly, we get back in the weeklies here. So I have my 127 and my 161 target. I have my weekly mid target. I know we're going to be coming back down here. Okay. So that's just my destination. We're still going to go through 4-hour cycles, right? We're still going to go through maybe a daily cycle or two in between this. So I'm still using my Celts to guide me, but I have this in mind at all times. We had the weekly inside shot. We have the fibs. We have the weekly mid. At that time when we would have drawn the fib, the 161 would have been right at the weekly mid. So I'm keeping that in mind. And then I'm using my daily Celts, my 4-hour Celts, my daily MACD, my 4-hour MACD to kind of guide me through these trades here. Then same thing on the bullish side, right? We bounce off the weekly mid here. Boom. I draw my fib. We hit my golden pocket. This is my destination. And I'll bet you anything this lined up with a Celt at somewhere. I guarantee you this was a major Celt level, probably a 4-hour bottom to 4-hour top we hit. So we're looking for that confirmation, right? We get our 4-hour inside shot or whatever it happens to be. And, you know, we're guiding ourselves up to that level. And that's what I was talking about is like, you have this target and we know it's there on the major time frame. You have to know when it's safe to push to that target aggressively, or when you need to take chunks. Take a chunk here, 15 mid to 15 top, 15 bottom to 15 top. And that's going to be on your primaries. If my primaries are aligned, we hold that golden pocket. I can pretty much tell you just by looking at this. We hit the golden pocket. You know, we have our 4-hour turns down. We hit the golden pocket. Our 4 hours still turned down. Our dailies probably turned up at this point. Primaries aren't aligned. We're still holding the golden pocket. Here, my primaries started to align. I can tell you just by looking at it. And as soon as the primaries align, boom, then we can push to that target. So yeah, draw the, yeah. So like, you don't need to draw them on like your time frame doesn't matter for drawing your Celt. It doesn't matter what your candles are. It just matters what the higher the low is. If I switch this to, you know, it's probably gonna take forever to load and it's gonna suck, but let's try it. If I switch this to 1-hour candles, my Celt's not gonna change. Or my fib's not gonna, yeah, my Celts won't load anymore, whatever. My fib's not gonna change, right? I still have the exact same fibs that I had. That just screwed the chart up. My fibs are gonna be the exact same fibs that I have. All that matters is whatever your, this isn't even the right spot, but whatever. All that matters is what your high and your low that you're drawing it on is. So like I'm drawing my major time frame fibs to get me my big time frame targets. And then hell yeah, man, throughout, oh, God damn it. Throughout the day, I'm drawing fibs all day to get my intraday entries, because you can't just be like, okay, we're going to the weekly top. I'm going to go long and hold for the weekly top, right? It doesn't work like that. You have to find your entries and you have to take it in pieces. You have to take it in individual pieces day by day. And, you know, unless your primaries are aligned and there's nothing else in the way, no 4-hour levels, no daily levels, then you can kind of ignore that and push. But yeah, man, I'm like, we took that example the other day. Like drawing fibs out all day long still helps you. We had this fib entry here to get us our first leg up. Then we had another fib entry to get us the next leg up. Then another fib entry to get us the next leg up. So do you need to draw it on 5-minute, hourly, daily, 30-minute, 15-minute? No, but draw it on a big time frame, daily or 4-hour, whatever, to get your general direction. And then, you know, I typically draw them on 1-minute candles throughout the day, just because, you know, if this were 5-minute or 2-minute candles is fine too. But the bigger you go, the harder it is to actually see the retraces, right? Like, you know, when we're looking at this here, it's on a 5-minute candle. It's going to be a lot harder to actually see that we're going through that little 1-minute breather. And, you know, because this is just one candle, it's a doji. Am I going to draw a fib on one candle? Probably not. So, you know, I'm doing it on 1 minute or 2-minute, but that to me, that's all you need, because the candle doesn't matter. It just matters what your highs and lows are. So your big time frames, and then 1 minute throughout the day to get your entries. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. I have to go. I have something at 9. So I hope that helped. I hope it was a good session.
Thanks, Kirby. That was a great session, man. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you, Kirby.
You're welcome. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if not, I will see y'all in the morning to make some money.
Thank you, Kirby.
Later.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.